The auctioneer's voice sliced through the cold Martian air like a scalpel. Lot 47, one mature Zillyrian female. Healthy, compliant, multilingual. Opening bid, 600 credits. Caged in translucent energy bars stood Zira, tall and graceful even in her exhaustion. Her violet skin shimmered dimly under the low auction lights, and her lavender eyes betrayed the kind of pain that only a mother could bear. The collar around her neck hummed faintly, suppressing her natural bioluminescence, a cruel symbolic extinguishing of hope. She clutched a small cloth bundle to her chest, not her child, but a handmade doll sewn from scraps. Her real child, Leoray, was safe, for now. Across the rust-red crowd, Captain Dax Corrin watched with quiet fury. A former Terran shock trooper turned off-world salvager, Dax had seen slavery before. But this was different. Zillyrians weren't. A species known for submission. They were proud, advanced, fiercely independent. That one would sell herself? That meant desperation. As the bidding started, Dax wasn't sure why he raised his hand. 1,000 credits, he said firmly. The auctioneer blinked, surprised at the jump. Do I hear 100? Silence. No one countered. Sold to the Terran in bay jacket. The gavel cracked. Zira lowered her head. Another chain, another owner. She expected the worst. All buyers were the same, except Dax wasn't. When he deactivated the collar, her glow returned in flickers. She flinched, expecting punishment. Instead, he turned away, tossed her a ration bar, and pointed at his ship. Come on. You're not cargo. You're crew now. She stared at him, stunned. You don't want me? I want to know why a warrior race mother would auction herself to feed a child. He paused. I'm not looking to own anyone, but I do want to help. Zira blinked rapidly. Was it hope? Fear? I don't understand, she whispered. You will, Dax said. We've both seen enough hell. Let's start walking towards something better. The inside of the Seraph's blade smelled like old solder, brewed calf, and rusted metal. A salvager's dream, or nightmare, depending on the day. Dax led Zira down the grated hallway toward her quarters. She moved silently, her gait still. Regal despite everything she had endured. It's not much, he said, unlocking the small side cabin. But it's safe. No locks, no collars. Zira stepped inside cautiously. It was small but clean. Bed, sink, folded clothes, even a flickering screen with preloaded stories. She traced her fingers along the edge of the table. You prepared this before the auction? Dax leaned in the doorway. Yeah. I don't go places like that unless I mean to pull someone out. Zira sat slowly on the edge of the bed. Why? Dax shrugged. Because I've been chained before. Not literally, but war chains your soul. There was a long silence. Zira looked up. I still don't understand. You could have chosen anyone, a worker, a fighter. But you chose a mother. You said it right there, he replied. Mother. And that means someone worth saving. Zira turned away, her shoulders stiff. I don't need saving. Dax smiled softly. Neither did I. But someone saved me anyway. A Zillyrian soldier in the last war. Took a plasma bolt to shield me during a ceasefire breach. Never even learned her name. Zira inhaled, then exhaled slowly. Her fingers tightened on the doll. That's... When I started learning your language, he continued, started understanding your people weren't what Earth Command made you out to be. You think you understand us? She asked sharply. I'm trying. That night they didn't speak much more, but Zira didn't lock the door, and that, in its own way, was the beginning of trust. The next few days were quiet, but transformative. Dax taught Zira to fly short-range drones. She showed him how to speak in the old Zillyrian tongue, the language of stars and songs. They began to understand each other not just with words, but gestures. She repaired his ship's sensor array. He helped her craft encrypted messages to check on her daughter's condition back on the mining colony she'd sacrificed herself for. Each night, their dinners grew longer. Each silence between them became more comfortable. Then came the bounty signal. A pirate ship had been raiding outer sector transports. The pay was good. The job was dangerous. And Zira insisted on going. "You bought me," she said bluntly. "Let me earn it." Dax narrowed his eyes. "That's not why I—" "No," she interrupted. "You didn't buy a slave, but you did buy a warrior. Let me fight." When the battle came, it was fire and metal. The Seraph's blade dropped out of warp near the pirate frigate Shatterjaw. The ambush was messy, immediate. Dax gunned the engines. Zira fired the EMP disruptors like she'd done it her whole life, starboard. "Shields failing!" Dax yelled. Zira leapt from her seat and rerouted the plasma core into the forward cannon. Her tattoos lit up with faint Zillyrian biolight as adrenaline surged through her. Then the cannon fired, a sunbeam of destruction. The Shatterjaw cracked and split, its core imploding in a ripple of violet energy. Dax let out a breath he hadn't realized he'd been holding. "Nice shot." Zira turned to him, breathing heavily, eyes glowing faintly. "Told you I was more than a mother." Dax took a step closer. "I never doubted it." Their eyes met, and in that gaze something electric passed between them. Not gratitude, not duty, something deeper. Zira's voice dropped. "You're not what I expected, Dax. Corin. And you're everything I didn't know I needed, Zira Venari." In the stillness after battle, the silence aboard the Seraph's blade felt heavier than vacuum. Zira stood in the engine bay, sparks dancing as she welded a stabilizer plate. Dax watched from the corridor, leaning against the wall. He wasn't watching the work. He was watching her, the precision in her hands, the way her shoulders moved with practiced power, the slight glow at the tips of her tattoos that never quite faded after a fight. "You ever miss it?" Dax asked. Zira didn't look up. "War?" He shook his head. "Home." Now she paused, removing her visor. "Zeller has no home left for me. My clan disavowed me when I sold myself. My daughter is all I have now." Dax walked over slowly. "Then we'll get her back." Zira turned. "You say it like it's simple. She's on a syndicate-controlled colony, guarded, locked. I'm not even allowed within 3 sectors of it without a kill order on site. I've gotten into worse places." Her eyes narrowed. "You'd risk yourself for a child you've never met." "I'd risk everything for the mother I'm falling in love with." Zira froze. The only sound was the soft hum of the ship around them. "I don't know what this is," she said quietly. "I've known only survival, duty, sacrifice. I don't know how to love." "You already do," Dax said gently. "You just call it something else." She closed her eyes for a moment. "If I let myself feel this, I'll be weak." "No," he said. "You'll be stronger than ever." They sat close that night in the cockpit, looking out at the stars. "I wasn't always like this," Dax confessed. "I used to believe humans were the center of everything. Then I saw what we did to your people." Zira's voice was soft. "And I believed humans were monsters. Until you." They didn't kiss. Not yet. But hands met. Fingers laced. The next day brought bad news. A bounty had been posted, not for Zira, but for Dax. "Looks like someone didn't appreciate us blowing the Shatterjaw to stardust," he said, reading the transmission. "Captain Brask is putting 10,000 credits on my head." Zira's expression was cold. "Brask is syndicate. He'll use the bounty to bait us in. He wants you dead, and me re-enslaved." "We run?" "No," she growled. "We fight. And then we take Liore." For the first time, Zira reached for his hand, not as a crew member, not as a rescued alien, but as a woman choosing war for someone she loved. They prepared for battle differently now. It wasn't about survival. It was about each other. Jira modified her armor to match Dax's, silver and violet. Twin shadows in the storm, Dax retrofitted the ship's core to outrun anything the Syndicate could throw at them. Their partnership had become something sacred, forged in pain, tempered in trust, and now hardened in love. When the beacon blinked red, and the trap sprung near the asteroid field of Nexari Prime, they were ready. 5 Syndicate ships uncloaked. Jira didn't flinch. "Let them come." Dax kissed her forehead. "I've got your back." As they launched into battle, engines roaring, and plasma ripping through space, there was only one thought that burned in both their minds. This wasn't just a mission anymore. It was family. The asteroid field around Nexari Prime became a storm of metal. Dax gripped the helm of the Seraph's blade, weaving between spinning debris as Jira fired from the gunnery station. The Syndicate had sent 5 warships, but they hadn't counted on 2 warriors with nothing left to lose and everything to gain. "Ship 3 incoming on port side," Jira shouted. Dax dipped the ship sideways, thrusters screaming as a plasma bolt whizzed past them. Jira's cannon roared back. A direct hit. One enemy ship shattered into molten fragments. Jira's eyes glowed brighter now, not just from adrenaline, but purpose. "This is for every mother who was sold," she growled. "Every child taken." "Let's finish this," Dax replied. But even love couldn't stop Captain Brask himself from appearing. The Vengeance reborn, his massive flagship, uncloaked behind the remaining Syndicate vessels. Twice the size of Dax's freighter, 10 times the firepower. The comm crackled. Brask's face filled the screen, scarred, half metal, hate burning in every eye. "Well, well," he snarled. "The traitor and his pet alien. You two have become quite the spectacle." Jira stepped forward. "I am Jira Venari of the Ashen Dunes clan. I am no one's pet." Brask sneered. "No, you're just a sold soul. And now, I'm taking her back, Dax Corrin. Or I'll take your heart out with a plasma blade." The signal cut. Dax and Jira exchanged a look. "Time to be legends," he whispered. The battle that followed was chaos. Jira donned her modified armor, stepping into the breach pod with a plasma glaive in hand. Dax would take out the defense. Grid. She would board the flagship alone. "Are you sure?" he asked at the hatch. "I have to be the one to face him," she said. "He owns my past. I won't let him steal my future." She hesitated. Then she pulled him close. This time they kissed. It wasn't soft or slow. It was urgent, desperate, a promise made in fire. "I'll come back," she whispered. "I have to see her again." "I'll be waiting," he said. The pod launched. Jira slammed into Vengeance Reborn like a meteor. She tore through Syndicate guards, her glaive a blur of white-hot fury. Her old soldier instincts had never dulled. She fought like a mother with no chains and no mercy. Finally, she reached the command bridge. Brask stood waiting, flanked by elite guards. "You always had fire," he grinned. "But no fire burns forever." Jira didn't speak. She just attacked. The fight was brutal. She took a blade to her ribs, crushed 2 guards, and finally faced Brask one-on-one. He was strong, a cybernetic beast, but she had something more powerful. Love, for Dax, for her daughter, for herself. With a final scream, she drove her glaive through his core. Sparks exploded, Brask's eyes dimmed, and then he fell. Meanwhile, Dax finished disabling the flagship's shields. He received Jira's signal. Bridge clear. He docked the Seraph's blade and rushed to her. He found her standing in the bridge's center, bloodied but unbroken. He ran to her, held her tight. "You did it," he whispered. "We did," she said. Then, she collapsed in his arms. Back aboard the Seraph's blade, Dax worked for hours in silence, healing her with medgel and nanobots. She drifted in and out of sleep, muttering her daughter's name. Leo Ray. When she finally woke, the stars outside were calm. "I thought I'd lost you," Dax said. "You can't lose what's already yours," Zira whispered, her hand on his chest. They lay there quiet, hearts beating in sync. In that silence, something unbreakable had formed. 1 week later, they approached the syndicate colony where Leo Ray was held. The syndicate was broken. Word of Brask's death had spread, their forces scattered, bribes opened doors. When Zira saw her daughter again, small with violet eyes and a fierce little frown, she dropped to her knees. "Leo Ray," she choked. "Mama?" Zira sobbed, holding her child so tightly it seemed the universe itself would split from the force of her love. Dax watched from the shadows, quiet tears in his eyes. He didn't speak. He didn't have to. She had everything she came for, and now, so did he. The Seraph's blade drifted through the outer rings of the peaceful Varethian nebula, its hull freshly repaired, its engines purring with promise. Inside, the ship no longer felt like a battlefield. It felt like home. Zira stood in the kitchen module, her armor replaced by a simple woven tunic. Her violet eyes softened as she watched Leo Ray, now safely asleep in Dax's old bunk, cuddling a handmade toy he'd crafted from spare ship parts. Dax approached quietly from behind, wrapping his arms around Zira's waist. "She's tougher than both of us. She's her mother's daughter," Zira smiled. "And she's already calling me Commander Uncle Dax," he chuckled. Zira leaned back into him. For the first time in her life, her shoulders relaxed. Her scars still marked her skin, but the war in her heart had calmed. Later that night, the three of them sat under the cockpit dome, stargazing. "I don't know what comes next," Zira said quietly. Dax looked at her. "We could build something new. A life. Not just run from the past, but make a future." Zira hesitated. She had always run, always fought, always lost. But now, "I want that," she said. Dax reached into his pocket and handed her something. It wasn't a ring. It was a key. To the co-pilot's chair. To his ship. To his heart. "This isn't me rescuing you," he said. "This is me choosing you. Will, you stay. Not because you have to, but because you want to?" Zira held the key tightly. "I've always belonged to someone. Sold, controlled, owned. But now, I choose too." She smiled. "I choose you." Months passed. The galaxy slowly shifted. Whispers of a human-alien alliance born from a defiant ex-soldier and a freed mother spread through the sectors. Zira and Dax became symbols, not of war, but of hope. Together they protected refugee colonies, freed slave routes, and dismantled the last syndicate cells. But they always came back to the Seraph's blade, to Leo Ray, to each other. One evening, as the stars outside shimmered like diamonds, Zira traced a scar along Dax's chest. "Do you ever wonder," she asked, "what would have happened if you hadn't bought me that day?" He kissed her forehead. "Then the galaxy would have lost its strongest warrior. And I would have missed the only love I ever truly knew." Zira held her daughter close that night, whispering words in her native tongue that meant strength, freedom, and forever. She was no longer a souled soul. She was a mother, a lover, a warrior of her own destiny, and with Dax by her side, she had something she never thought she'd find: peace. If this story moved you, if you believe in love that breaks chains and courage that changes galaxies, share it. Let someone else feel the hope, the heart, and the fire behind every scar. Because sometimes the strongest warriors are the ones who choose love.